Good evening, Virgo. There are moments that arrive without announcement, not in the calendar, not in the plan, just in the quality of a particular morning that feels different from the one before it, in a stillness that sits differently in the chest, in the sense quiet, persistent, almost embarrassing to admit that something is opening. If you've felt that recently, even once, even briefly, then maybe you already know why you're here. Um, Something has been shifting in you, not outside, not yet, maybe, but in you, and the quality of how you move through your days. In the particular way, certain possibilities, ones you'd filed away under not yet, under someday, under maybe for someone else, but not quite for me, have started to feel less impossible. Not certain, not guaranteed, just less impossible than they used to. And that shift, small as it might seem, is worth paying attention to, because the distance between impossible and possible is not a small distance. It's actually one of the largest distances a person can travel. And most of it happens internally, quietly, in the moments nobody sees, in the private recalibrations, not toward someone else this time, but toward yourself, toward what you actually believe you're allowed to have. And that word, allowed, that's the one worth sitting with. Because somewhere, and you probably know when, even if the memory is vague, you learned a version of what you were allowed, what was reasonable to expect, what was appropriate to want, what level of abundance, financial, emotional, relational, was the right size for someone like you. And that learning, wherever it came from, became a ceiling, not visible, not a wall you could point to, just a ceiling. The height beyond which wanting felt presumptuous, naive, like reaching for something that belonged to other kinds of people, not you specifically, just other kinds, toys. And you've been living under that ceiling for a while now. Not dramatically, not in ways that would be obvious from the outside, but in the specific daily way that people live under ceilings they've internalized by not quite finishing the application, by not quite asking for what the work is worth, by not quite letting someone love you at the full depth they're offering, by not quite believing, even when the evidence suggests otherwise, that the bigger version of your life is actually available to you. And those two things, the money and the love, they're not as separate as they might seem. That's what's worth understanding, not practically, not in the obvious ways they intersect, but psychologically, structurally, in the way they both require the same internal permission, the same belief, the same willingness to receive something significant without immediately finding a reason to make it smaller, to qualify it, to protect yourself from it. before it can be taken away. Because the thing that caps abundance in any form is almost never external. Almost never. The ceiling is almost always built from the inside, from the accumulated weight of moments where you asked and were told no, where you reached and were pulled back, where you trusted and were disappointed, where you wanted openly, visibly, vulnerably, and paid some price for it. And over time, lesson by lesson, disappointment by disappointment, you got quieter about what you wanted, more private with it, more careful, more contained, and the containing again made sense at the time, in the context. It was protection. It was intelligent, but protection that outlives its original context becomes a different kind of problem. It becomes the thing that keeps out not just the disappointment, but the abundance, the love, the larger version of the life that was always, always more available than you let yourself believe. Now, here's what's actually happening this month. Not in any mystical sense, not in any way that requires you to believe in anything outside your own psychology, just in the observable, human, real sense. Something in you is opening, slightly, maybe without you fully choosing it. Maybe because you're tired, genuinely bone deep tired of living at the size the ceiling allows. Maybe because something happened, something small, something you might not even remember clearly, that shifted something internally. That made the ceiling feel, for a moment, less permanent than it had felt before, less structural, more like something that was built, which means something that can be unbuilt. And when something starts to open, even slightly, things that were waiting outside it start to find their way in. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you changed, because the internal permission shifted, because what you're willing to receive, what you are willing to let land without immediately deflecting it, expanded, even slightly, even temporarily, even in ways you'll probably doubt by tomorrow morning, and money. Real financial movement, real opportunity responds to that opening. Not magically, not through any mechanism that defies logic, but in the very real, very observable way that people who believe they're worth more tend to ask for more, tend to take the meeting, tend to send the proposal, tend to not preemptively undersell themselves out of the thing before it's even offered, tend to recognize opportunity when it arrives as something for them, not for someone else, for them. And you right now in this particular opening are closer to that recognition than you've been in a while, closer to seeing an opportunity and not immediately constructing the reasons it probably isn't for you, closer to asking for the thing without pre-apologizing for the ask. Closer to believing, quietly, privately, without needing anyone to confirm it, that the larger version of your financial life is not someone else's story. It's yours. If you stop talking yourself out of it before it arrives. And the love, the deep love, the real kind, works exactly the same way. Exactly. Because deep love, not the performed kind, not the careful kind, requires the same internal permission, the same willingness to be seen fully, the same capacity to receive something significant without immediately protecting yourself from it, without finding in the very realness of it a reason to create distance. And you've been doing both of those things longer than makes you comfortable to admit. Creating distance from money, from love, from anything that feels large enough to hurt significantly if it leaves, by not quite letting it arrive, by living in the almost enough, the almost there, the version of abundance that's real enough to survive the losing of, but not large enough to change everything. And the almost, that careful, protected almost, has been safe. But safety and aliveness are not the same thing. And somewhere in the part of you that's been shifting this month, the part that brought you here, that you feel the difference between safe and alive, between protected and present, between the life you've been allowing yourself and the life that, if you let yourself feel it clearly, you actually want. And what you actually want, the full version of it, not the edited down, safe version, is not unreasonable. It's not too much. It's not inflated or naive or the wanting of someone who doesn't know how things work. It's just the wanting of someone who is ready, genuinely ready, not perfect, not healed of everything, not without fear or doubt or the old protective instincts that will almost certainly still fire, but ready in the specific way you're ready when you're tired enough of the almost to risk the real. Because here's what this month is actually about. Not a guarantee, not a promise, not something written somewhere in a language you don't have access to, but a window, a particular quality of internal openness that, if you don't talk yourself out of it, changes what you're available to receive, changes what you ask for, changes what you let land, changes quietly from the inside. The ceiling, and the ceiling changing, even slightly, changes everything else eventually. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in the specific, real, observable way. That internal permission reshapes external reality, not through magic, through behavior. through what you ask for, through what you accept, through what you walk toward instead of preemptively away from, through what you let yourself believe quietly, privately, in the moments nobody's watching, is actually for you. The money is for you, not for someone else, not for people who are more prepared, more qualified, more certain, more deserving in ways you can't quite identify, but somehow always assumed they were. For you, in the work you've already done, in the value you already carry, in the contribution you've already been making, sometimes invisibly, sometimes without full credit, that is worth more than you've been asking for it. And the love, the deep kind, the real kind, that's for you too. Not the almost love, not the love that keeps you at arm's length, not the love that arrives with conditions and withdrawals and the specific hunger of never quite receiving the full thing. The real kind, the kind that sees you, the unedited version, the one with the parts you hide, and stays. That kind for you, not someday. Not when you've fixed the things you think need fixing. As you are now in this opening, in this shift, the only real question is whether you'll let it, whether you'll catch yourself in the moment of deflecting, of making the opportunity smaller, of creating distance from the love, of talking yourself back under the ceiling. And pause, just for a moment, just long enough to ask, what if I let this one land? What if this one, this opportunity, this feeling, this opening is actually for me? What if I stop protecting myself from it long enough to find out that pause, that single, quiet, almost invisible pause is the whole thing? That's where the month lives. Not in a dramatic event, not in an announcement. In the pause between the deflection and the receiving, between the ceiling and the open sky above it, between the almost and the actual, you're closer to that pause than you've been in a long time. Something in you knows it. Something in you, the part that's been shifting, the part that brought you here, is already standing at the edge of it, already feeling, maybe for the first time in a while, like the larger version of the life isn't someone else's story. It was always yours. The ceiling was never the truth. It was just a belief, an old one, a tired one. And beliefs, unlike ceilings, can change. They can change in a month, in a moment, in a pause, in exactly this one.